Dust dances in the sun rays piercing through the windows of the 32nd floor, like lost souls searching for a place to settle. Elena Morales gripped the handle of her cleaning toolbox tightly as the glass elevator ascended vertiginously toward the heights of the city. 32 years old, 2 teenage children, and a determination she had inherited from her grandmother, along with her hard-working hands and heart, too big for her own good. The navy blue uniform from Premium Clean Services fit her impeccably, but she felt like the embroidered name tag weighed like a slab on her chest. "Floor 32, penthouse," announced the elevator's automated voice, with a coldness that foreshadowed what she would find. The doors opened with a mechanical whisper, revealing a hallway of polished black marble so shiny that Elena could see her own distorted reflection. A single door at the end, imposing, made of dark wood with stainless steel details. She breathed deeply, adjusted her brown ponytail and rang the bell. Rang. The man who opened the door looked like he had forgotten how to hold his own body. Martin Salazar was 41 years old, but his hunched shoulders and the shadow of exhaustion under his grey eyes added a decade more. He wore a suit that probably cost more than 3 months of Elena's salary, but the wrinkles in his shirt and poorly tied tie revealed he had put it on without looking in the mirror, without really caring. "So you must be the new one from the cleaning service," he said without inflection in his voice, without a smile, without even really looking her in the eyes. His gaze passed through Elena as if she were transparent, as if he were already thinking about the next 20 emails he needed to answer. "Yes, Mr. Salazar, Elena Morales, I'll come on Tuesdays and Thursdays, from 10 to 2 in the afternoon, as you agreed with the agency." He nodded mechanically and stepped aside, letting her pass. The apartment stretched before her like an abandoned museum, 300 square meters of absolute luxury and existential emptiness. Ebony wood floors, 4-meter-high ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a panoramic view of the city extending to the horizon. Designer furniture arranged with geometric precision, a grey Italian leather sofa that looked like it had never been touched, a glass and steel dining table for 12, with not a single chair out of place, wall-to-wall shelves filled with business books, with perfectly aligned spines that had probably never been opened. But there were no photographs, not a single one. No plants, no messy blankets on the sofa, no forgotten coffee cups, no stacked magazines. Absolutely nothing indicating that a human being actually lived there. The air conditioning hummed constantly, keeping the temperature so low that Elena felt a shiver run down her back. "The keys are on the kitchen counter," Martin said without turning, already walking toward his office with heavy steps. "The alarm code is written down. There's a list of specific instructions. Don't touch my desk. Don't rearrange anything in the office. Don't—" He paused as if about to say something more personal, but stopped. "It's not necessary for us to talk. I'll be working." And he disappeared behind a frosted glass door that closed with a definitive click, leaving her alone in that mausoleum of empty success. Elena set her toolbox on the floor and simply stood for a moment, absorbing the palpable sadness that permeated every corner. She had cleaned rich people's houses for 7 years, ever since her ex-husband abandoned her and the children without looking back. She had seen everything: mansions full of scandalous parties, apartments where the owners treated her like invisible furniture, homes where families argued loudly while she tried to go unnoticed. But she had never felt such overwhelming loneliness as emanated from this place. She began her work methodically, as always. First, she walked through the entire space to assess what needed attention. The state-of-the-art kitchen was impeccably clean because it clearly was never used. She opened the refrigerator and found yogurts expired 2 weeks ago, an unopened carton of expired milk, wilted vegetables in the bottom drawer. Bachelor food that he didn't even bother to eat. She moved to the master bedroom. A perfectly made king-size bed, probably by the previous cleaning service, with 1,000-thread Egyptian cotton sheets that showed no sign of having been used recently. Elena frowned and checked the closet. Designer shirts hung with military precision, suits organized by color, shoes lined up like soldiers. But on the dressing room floor, almost hidden behind the hangers, she found a wrinkled shirt balled up, and another, and 3 more. The bathroom was revealing in its neglect. Bottles of anxiety pills lined up next to the sink like small chemical soldiers. Alprazolam, lorazepam. Names Elena recognized because her older sister had battled panic attacks for years. The prescription dates were recent, barely from the previous week, but the bottles were almost empty. She returned to the living room and approached the windows. The view was impressive. The city spread out like a tapestry of life and movement, thousands of people down there living their lives, connected in the daily chaos. But up here, in this tower of glass and steel, there was a man locked in a prison of his own construction. As she cleaned, Elena couldn't help but hear the sounds coming from the office. The constant typing on the computer, occasionally interrupted by phone conversations in English, in a tone always professional, always controlled, always empty of any real emotion. Phrases like, "Proceed with the acquisition," "The third quarter numbers are unacceptable," "Reorganize the entire department if necessary." A man directing an empire without mercy, without joy, without anything more than the next goal to reach. When she finished cleaning, it was 2 o'clock. Elena collected her things in silence, but before leaving, she did something that wasn't in the agency's protocol. She took the expired food from the refrigerator and threw it away. She organized the medications in the medicine cabinet, and she left a small sticky note next to the automatic coffee maker that he obviously used every morning. "Coffee tastes better when taken calmly. Have a good day. E." She didn't expect a response. She didn't expect him to even notice it. But when she left the apartment, she felt she had left behind something more than a clean space. She had left the first trace of humanity in a long time. When she got home that night, while preparing dinner for Miguel, her 16-year-old son, and Sophia, her 13-year-old daughter, she couldn't get the image of that man alone in his glass castle out of her head. "Mom, why do you have that face?" asked Sophia, always the most perceptive of the two. Elena stirred the sauce for the pasta and smiled half-heartedly. "Today, I met the loneliest man in the world." "Lonelier than you when Dad left?" asked Miguel with that brutal honesty of teenagers. Elena paused. She remembered those first months after the abandonment, the nights crying silently so the children wouldn't hear her, the nearly empty bank account, the terror of not being able to keep her family afloat. But even at her worst moment, she had her children, her sister, the neighbors who brought her food without asking. "Yes, sweetheart, lonelier than me back then, because he chose his loneliness, and those are the hardest to break." The following Tuesday, Eleanor returned to the apartment with her toolbox and a small additional bag containing something that wasn't on her cleaning supply list. When Martine opened the door, she noticed there was a minimal but significant change. The sticky note she had left was now stuck on the bathroom mirror, not thrown in the trash. He didn't mention the note. He simply nodded with his usual mechanical gesture and disappeared into his office. But Eleanor had learned to read silences, and this silence said, "I saw your message." As she cleaned, Eleanor worked with her usual efficiency, but this time she paid more attention to the revealing details of who Martin Salazar really was. On the dining table, perfectly organized, were stacks of business magazines, Forbes, Fortune, The Economist, all with small sticky notes marking specific articles, all related to technology, innovation, disruption. A man who even in his free time, if he had such a thing, consumed content about work. On a shelf near the windows, almost hidden behind thick volumes on business management, Eleanor found something different. An old, worn book of poetry by Pablo Neruda. The spine was frayed, the yellowed pages had dog-eared corners, margin annotations in a youthful and hopeful handwriting, so different from the controlled and precise writing she had seen in his business documents. She opened the book carefully and found a dedication on the first page. "For Martine, may you never stop dreaming, even when you build your empire. With eternal affection, Clara, March 15th, 2019. 5 years ago. Elena felt a weight in her chest. Who was Clara? Why was this book the only personal object in the entire apartment? What had happened that turned the Martine of 2019, who received poetry books with eternal affection, into the corporate ghost of 2024? She continued cleaning, but her mind kept circling back to that mystery. In the bedroom closet, while organizing the shirts he left lying around, she found another clue. In the pocket of a suit jacket, An old plane ticket. Madrid, Buenos Aires, March 20th, 2019. Economy class. Before his evident current wealth. The story was beginning to take shape in her mind like a puzzle. A younger Martín with less money, traveling to Buenos Aires shortly after receiving that book. Running from something? Looking for something? And then, at some point between then and now, building a technological empire but completely losing his humanity in the process. When she reached the bathroom, Eleanor made her small decision of the day. From the additional bag she had brought, she took out a jar of handmade lavender bath salts. It was one of her small side projects, something she did at night when the children were asleep. Cleaning and personal care products, artisanal with natural ingredients, which she occasionally sold to neighbors and friends. A postponed dream of turning it into a real business. She left the jar next to the bathtub that clearly was never used, with another note. For when the world becomes too noisy, a gift, E. And then she did something bolder. In the kitchen, she programmed the coffee maker to be ready at 6:30 the next morning, the time he obviously woke up according to the usage pattern she had observed. Next to the coffee maker, she left a small plate with homemade oatmeal cookies that she had made with Sophia the day before, wrapped in parchment paper. No note this time, just a gesture. At 2 o'clock, as she collected her things, she heard the office door open. Martín came out with the same tired appearance as always, and for the first time looked at her directly for more than 2 seconds. "The pills," he said abruptly. "You organized them." "Yes, sir. Sorry if I overstepped, but I thought it would be easier to find what you need when I have a panic attack," he completed with a bitterness that cut through the air. "You can say it. I'm not going to be offended by naming my own weakness." Elena stopped, weighing her words carefully. 7 years working for rich people had taught her there were 2 types of clients, those who wanted you to be invisible and those who deep down desperately begged for someone to truly see them. Martín, she sensed, was the second type, though he denied it with every fiber of his being. "It's not weakness, Mr. Salazar. It's being human." He looked at her fixedly, as if evaluating whether she was being sincere or simply professional. His grey eyes, which she had thought were dead, showed for a moment something resembling surprise. "Martín," he said finally. "You can call me Martín. Mr. Salazar sounds like my father is in the room, and believe me, that's not a presence I want to invoke." "Martín, then," Elena nodded, feeling that something tiny but significant had just changed in the air between them. He seemed to want to say something more, opened his mouth, but then simply shook his head and returned to the office. But before closing the door, he stopped and, without turning, said, "Thank you for the notes." Eleanor smiled at his back, though he couldn't see her. That night, while helping Miguel with his math homework, or rather while Miguel tried to explain concepts she had forgotten decades ago, she received a call from Patricia Ruiz, her direct supervisor at Premium Clean Services. "Eleanor, how's it going with the penthouse client at Torre Empresarial?" "Fine, Patricia. The apartment is large but relatively organized. Mr. Salazar is discreet." "Discreet?" Patricia let out a dry laugh that Elena knew too well, that laugh of a woman who has seen too much in this business. "That man is a ghost, dear. He's been our client for 3 years. We've had 7 different cleaners with him. They all requested a change of assignment. Why, is he difficult?" "He's not difficult, he's non-existent. He never talks, never asks for anything, never complains, but it made the girls uncomfortable. They said it was disturbing to clean a place where someone lives as if they're not alive. You're the 8th. I hope you last longer than the others." Elena processed this information after hanging up. 7 women before her, all unable to bear the atmosphere of that apartment. But she didn't feel discomfort. She felt sadness. A deep maternal sadness she knew very well. "Mum, are you listening?" Miguel waved a hand in front of her face. "I asked you how to solve this quadratic equation." "Sorry, sweetheart. I was thinking about work." "About the rich, lonely guy?" asked Sophia from the couch without looking up from her phone. "Don't get attached, Mum. Rich people aren't like us." But Eleanor already knew. She knew she was crossing an invisible line between professionalism and personal compassion. She knew Patricia had subtly warned her about maintaining distance, She knew her grandmother, if she were alive, would tell her to focus on her own family, on her own problems. But she also knew she had seen Martin Salazar, truly seen the man behind the success and money, and that man was drowning in silence. And Elena Morales, for better or worse, had never been able to look away when someone was drowning. On Thursday, when Elena arrived at the apartment, she immediately noticed something was different. The air conditioning wasn't at its usual Arctic temperature. The temperature was normal, almost warm, human. Martin opened the door looking worse than ever. His eyes were bloodshot. His 2-day beard gave him a disheveled appearance, and his shirt was wrinkled in a way that suggested he had fallen asleep in it. "Sorry for my appearance," he murmured, rubbing his face. "Video conference with investors from Singapore, 3 in the morning. Not worth going to bed when you have to be up at 6 for the European market opening." Elena set down her toolbox and studied him with the same expression she used when Miguel came home, pretending he didn't have a fever. "When was the last time you slept a full night?" He looked at her, surprised by the frankness of the question. "A full night? Define full." 8 hours without interruptions." Martin let out a bitter laugh that sounded more like a cough. "Then probably 2019. No, wait, in 2019 I still slept 5 hours. I'd say the last time I slept 8 consecutive hours was in 2017, before the company really took off. 7 years without sleeping adequately." Elena felt something twist in her chest. "And the cookies?" she asked instead, noticing that the plate she had left was empty and clean in the dishwasher. For the first time since she'd known him, Elena saw something resembling a genuine smile briefly cross Martin's face. It was like seeing the sun break through storm clouds for a second. "They were good. Really good." "Did you make them?" "With my daughter. It's our Wednesday ritual, baking something together." "Ritual?" Martin repeated as if the word were in a foreign language. "What a pleasant concept. Having rituals that don't involve board meetings." They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Elena could feel that he wanted to say something more, that there was a deeper conversation trying to be born, but neither knew how to start it. Finally, Martin cleared his throat. "Well, I'll be in the office, if you need anything." "Martin?" Elena stopped him, surprising herself with her boldness. "The Neruda book. I accidentally moved it while cleaning last week. It's beautiful. I didn't know you liked poetry." She saw his expression close instantly, like a door slammed by the wind. That was from another era, another life, another me. And he left, but this time closed his office door harder than necessary. Eleanor stood looking at the frosted glass door, knowing she had just touched an unhealed wound. As she cleaned that morning, Elena worked more carefully than ever, especially near the office. She could hear fragments of phone conversations. "Taz, I need those numbers before market close or the entire merger falls apart. I don't care if it's the weekend in Tokyo, wake them up. Cut 15% of staff if necessary for the margins." Each phrase was a hammer blow of pressure, responsibility, decisions that affected lives. Eleanor thought about her own life, where her most stressful decisions were whether she could afford to buy new shoes for Sophia or if they had to last another month. Both types of stress were real, but Martine's came with an isolation that hers didn't. When she finished the kitchen, Elena made another decision. She took out her phone and played soft music, instrumental, barely audible. Nothing invasive, just a melancholic piano that filled the deathly silence of the apartment with something alive. She waited for him to come out yelling to turn it off, violating his bubble of control, but nothing happened. 20 minutes later, as Elena was dusting the living room shelves, the office door opened. Martin came out walking slowly, as if in a trance, and simply stood in the middle of the room, listening. "Chopin," he said finally, "Nocturne Op. 9. Number 2. It's been years since I've listened to classical music." "Does it bother you?" "I can turn it off." "No, it doesn't bother me, it's just—" He made a long pause, as if searching for words he had forgotten how to use. "It reminds me that there's a world outside screens and video conferences." Eleanor set down the duster and dared to sit on the edge of the sofa, tacitly inviting him to do the same. To her surprise, after a moment of hesitation, Martine sat on the other end, maintaining a prudent but present distance. "How did you end up doing what you do?" asked Elena. "Forgive my curiosity, but I've read about you in some magazines. Salazar Tech Solutions, the software company that revolutionized business logistics. Forbes called you the solitary genius of technology." "Solitary genius," Martine repeated with irony. "What a romantic title to describe someone who sacrificed their entire personal life on the altar of success." Sacrificed or chose to sacrifice? Martine looked at her with something resembling respect. What a perceptive question. "At first I chose. I come from a very humble family on the outskirts of Seville. My father was a mechanic. My mother cleaned houses just like you. 3 younger siblings. I saw how my parents worked themselves to death and we still barely had enough to eat. I swore I would be different. I studied like crazy, got a scholarship, came to the city, worked 3 jobs while finishing computer engineering. And I succeeded. More success than I ever imagined." But Eleanor perceived the unspoken word hanging in the air. "But success is addictive. Each goal reached only reveals the next mountain to climb. The first 100,000 in earnings, then the first million, then 10 million, then the 100 million valuation for the company. And somewhere along the way I forgot why I was climbing. I only knew I couldn't stop." "And your parents?" asked Eleanor softly. "Your siblings?" Martine closed his eyes. "My father died 3 years ago, heart attack. I was in the middle of closing the merger with a German company. I didn't go to the funeral. I said I couldn't leave the business at such a critical moment. My mother hasn't spoken to me since. My siblings either. They're right to hate me." The silence that followed weighed tons. Elena thought about her own children, how she would have left anything, any job, any opportunity, to be with them at important moments. But she also understood, in a painful way, how sometimes people get trapped in patterns that seem impossible to break. "And Clara?" she asked, risking it. "The person who gave you the Neruda book?" Martine tensed instantly, and Elena thought he would get up and end the conversation. But he didn't. Instead, he dropped his head into his hands. "Clara is... I don't know how to describe her. My fiancée. The woman who was going to marry me, even though I was a nobody working 18 hours a day. She understood me. She supported me. She loved me when there was no logical reason to do so. And I destroyed her. What happened? What happened was I received the biggest investment offer of my life 2 weeks before our wedding, 50 million euros. But there was a condition. I had to move to Buenos Aires for 2 years to personally oversee the Latin American expansion. Clara had her own career here, her family, her life. I asked her to leave it all and come with me. She refused, not because she didn't love me, but because she was right. I was choosing money over our future together. We argued. I said horrible things. Things I'll regret for the rest of my life. I accused her of not supporting me, of wanting to keep me small, and then... His voice broke. Then I cancelled the wedding, accepted the investment, and went to Buenos Aires. And her. She married someone else a year later, a university professor, someone who was present, someone who put her first. I saw the photos on social media. She looked happy, really happy. The kind of happiness I could never give her because I was too busy chasing the next million. Elena felt tears burning her eyes, not from pity but from recognition. Recognition of a pain she understood, of decisions that couldn't be undone, of lives that took different paths based on choices made in moments of pride and fear. "Do you still love her?" "I think..." Martine looked up, his grey eyes bright with unshed tears. "I think I never stopped loving her. But it's the kind of love that only reminds you of what you could have had if you'd been a better person. It's the kind of love that becomes punishment." Chopin's music filled the silence between them, each note like a tear falling into calm water. Elena didn't know what to say. There were no words that could fix 5 years of regret. So she did the only thing she knew how to do. She extended her hand across the space separating them on the sofa. She didn't touch him, just left her hand open there. An offer, not a demand. After what seemed like an eternity, Martine took it. His hand was cold, trembling. The hand of a man who had forgotten what human contact meant. They stayed like that, two strangers connected by the simplest of actions, while the music continued to play and the city continued its frenetic dance 32 floors below, oblivious to the small moment of humanity shared in the heights. It was Tuesday of the third week, when Elena arrived at the apartment and found a scene that froze her blood. Martine didn't open the door. After ringing the bell 3 times with no response, she used the key he had given her. What she found filled her simultaneously with terror and compassion. Martin was sitting on the kitchen floor, his back against the imported cherry-wood cabinets, trembling uncontrollably. His face was pale, drenched in sweat, and his hands gripped his knees so tightly that his knuckles were white. His eyes were open, but saw nothing, lost in the pure panic consuming him. "Martine! Martine, look at me!" Elena dropped her toolbox and knelt in front of him. "You're having a panic attack. You're safe. I'm going to help you." He tried to speak, but only broken gasps came out. "Can't breathe." "Yes, you can. Listen to my voice. We're going to breathe together. Inhale for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. Exhale for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It was a technique she had learned with her sister. She repeated it over and over, her voice firm and calm, her eyes fixed on his, anchoring him to reality. Slowly, minute by minute, the trembling began to diminish. His breathing became more regular. Color gradually returned to his face. When he could finally speak, his voice was hoarse. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You shouldn't have seen that." "Martine, no." Elena took his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. "Don't apologize for being human. Don't apologize for breaking under a weight no one should carry alone." Tears began to roll down his cheeks, the first he had probably shed in years. "The merger. Everything's falling apart. The investors want impossible results. My CFO resigned this morning, and I can't anymore. I built all this. It's all I am. And it's collapsing. And I don't know how to stop it. And if I lose everything, what's left of me?" Elena sat on the floor next to him, their very different work uniforms, but their humanities perfectly equal in that moment. What remains is the man who cared for his family. What remains is the student who worked 3 jobs for his dreams. What remains is the person who loves Neruda's poetry. What remains is someone brave enough to sit on his kitchen floor and admit he's broken. That person is more real than any corporate title or bank account. "How do you do it?" asked Martine, his voice barely a whisper. "How do you keep going when everything feels impossible?" Elena thought about the nights after Ricardo left her, when the fear of being a single mother without a college degree or savings crushed her. She thought about the times she had cried silently in the bathroom while her children slept. She thought about each small humiliation, each overdue bill, each day wondering if she would be enough. "I don't do it alone. I have my children. I have my sister. I have neighbors who bring me food when they know things are tough. I have a network of people who remind me that I'm not just a cleaner or a single mother or any other label the world wants to put on me. I'm Elena, and that's enough. But you've isolated yourself so much that you forgot that asking for help isn't weakness, it's wisdom." They sat in silence, 2 people on the floor of a designer kitchen, surrounded by appliances that cost more than Elena's annual salary, but united by something much more valuable than money: shared human vulnerability. "I don't know how to get out of this," Martine finally admitted. "You don't have to know today, you just have to survive today. And tomorrow you survive tomorrow, and so on." He nodded weakly, exhausted from the emotional storm. "Would you stay? Just a while longer? I don't want to be alone right now." "I'll stay." Eleanor called her sister and asked her to pick up the kids from school. Then she helped Martine stand up, guided him to the sofa, that expensive sofa that had never been used for its real purpose of giving comfort, and made him sit. She prepared tea, nothing fancy, just chamomile tea from the cheap box she had brought from home weeks ago. They sat together while he drank the tea with still slightly trembling hands. Eleanor didn't try to fill the silence with empty words. Sometimes presence was more powerful than any motivational speech. "My birthday is in 3 weeks, Martine said suddenly. "I'll turn 42, and it will be like all the others since I left for Buenos Aires, alone, working, pretending it's a normal day, because acknowledging it's your birthday means acknowledging another year passed and you're still just as empty as the previous one. Eleanor felt something crystallize in her mind. An idea. Dangerous. Probably stupid. Definitely against all the rules of her job. But an idea she couldn't let go. What day is it? June 15th. Elena's heart leapt. I also have a birthday on June 15th. I'll turn 33. Martine looked at her with genuine surprise, and for the first time in weeks, something resembling a real smile crossed his face. The same day? What are the odds? In a city of 3 million, pretty low, but here we are. Something changed in that moment. A connection that went beyond employer-client, beyond rich-poor, beyond all the categories the world used to separate people. Two souls sharing a birth date, now also sharing this moment of crisis and humanity. How do you usually celebrate? Asked Martine with real curiosity. Nothing extravagant. A cake I bake with Sophia, a homemade dinner with the kids. Sometimes my sister comes, small, simple, but full of love. Sounds perfect, Martine said with a voice containing so much sadness that Elena felt her heart break a little more. That night, after making sure Martine was stable and he had promised to call his doctor to adjust his medication, Elena returned home with her mind racing. An idea had taken root, growing with the persistence of a wild plant pushing through concrete. What if? No, it was ridiculous. She could lose her job. Patricia had been clear about maintaining professional boundaries, but Martine didn't need a professional employee right now. He needed a friend. He needed to be reminded that he mattered as a person, not as a corporate title or a bank account number. Elena took out her notebook, a cheap spiral notebook where she made shopping lists and budgets, and began to write. Not a plan yet, just ideas, possibilities, seeds of something that might, perhaps, bring back a little light to a man living in his own self-imposed darkness. Miguel came into the kitchen looking for a late-night snack. "Mom, what are you doing up so late?" "Thinking about how to help someone who needs it." "The rich guy?" "Yes, the rich guy, who turns out isn't so different from us, just lonelier." Miguel sat across from her, studying her with that way teenagers have of seeing through adults' masks. "You're going to do something crazy, aren't you? I can see it in your eyes. It's the same look you had when you decided to confront my school principal about the bullying I suffered in 3rd grade. Elena smiled. Her son knew her too well. Maybe, probably. But sometimes crazy is right. Just be careful, Mom. Not everyone wants to be saved, even when they need it. Wisdom from a 16-year-old boy who had already seen too much of the world. Elena nodded, but her determination didn't waver. She had seen something in Martine today, on that kitchen floor. She had seen a man on the edge of a precipice, and she, for better or worse, wasn't the type of person who could look away. On Thursday, Elena arrived at the apartment with her determination tempered by practical reality. Before doing anything impulsive, she needed to talk to Martine about something she had been avoiding, her son Miguel. Martine opened the door, looking better than the last time they saw each other, though better was relative. At least he had shaved and his shirt was pressed. "Hello, Elena. Sorry about the other day. I shouldn't have put you in that uncomfortable position." "Don't be ridiculous, I'm glad I was here. Did you talk to your doctor?" "Yes, he adjusted my medication and also he recommended I consider therapy. Apparently, panic attacks on the kitchen floor are signs that maybe I'm not handling things as well as I thought." There was a touch of self-deprecating humor in his voice that Elena found encouraging. "Are you going to go?" "I'm considering it. It's a strange concept for me talking to a stranger about my problems, but I guess that's what I've been doing with you, isn't it?" Elena smiled. "There's a difference. I come with cleaning products and an inappropriately optimistic attitude. Therapists come with degrees and an hourly rate much higher than mine." Martine laughed genuinely, a sound that completely transformed his face. "Now you're good for me, Elena Morales. I don't know if you should be cleaning apartments. You should be, I don't know, being a therapist, motivational counselor, or entrepreneur." Elena seized the opening. "I have something I wanted to ask you, but it's personal and it's completely okay if you say no." Martine immediately got serious, his businessman mode activating. "What do you need?" It's not for me, it's for my son, Miguel. He's 16 and he's on a bad path. His grades have dropped, he's been skipping classes. He has new friends who are pressuring him to drop out of school and get a job. I tell him education is important, but he sees me working double shifts cleaning houses, and we barely make ends meet, and he thinks school is a waste of time. Martine's expression softened. I understand. I was that kid. I wanted to drop out of school at 15 to work full-time and help my family. My mother beat me, literally and figuratively, until I came to my senses. I don't hit my children, Elena said quickly. No, of course not. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm saying is I understand the temptation to take shortcuts when you see your family struggling. What do you need me to do? Elena swallowed. This went against every fiber of pride in her body. There's an excellence prep program in the city. It prepares students for university, offers tutoring, mentoring, but it costs €5,000 per semester. I could never afford that. But I thought maybe you, with your connections, would know about scholarships or financial aid programs or... I'll pay for it, Martine interrupted immediately. No, I'm not asking you to... Eleanor, I'll pay for it. It's not charity, it's investment. In a kid who has an extraordinary mother who cares enough to ask for help when her pride is screaming at her not to. That kind of mother raises the kind of man this world needs. Eleanor felt tears burning her eyes. I can't accept that, it's too much. Then don't call it a gift. Call it a loan. Pay me back when your artisanal cleaning products company takes off and you become my competition. How do you know about... I saw the jars of bath salts you've been leaving. I tried them. They're excellent, professional. And then I searched your name online and found your small social media page where you sell them. You have talent, Elena. Real talent. You just need capital and time to develop it. Elena didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so she did both. You're a strange man, Martín Salazar. The world sees you as a heartless corporate shark. But here you are offering to pay for the education of a child you don't even know. Not so strange. Just someone who understands how an opportunity at the right time can completely change the course of a life. Someone gave it to me once. It's time to return the favor. That conversation marked a fundamental shift in their relationship. They were no longer simply employer and client. They were something more. Friends, perhaps. Or two people navigating their difficult lives who found in each other a safe refuge. In the following weeks, as Martín indeed paid Miguel's tuition to the prep program, and also, without Elena knowing at first, got him a personal mentor from his own company, she began to notice more changes in the apartment. Photographs appeared. Not many, just a couple. One of Martín with his parents when he was young, smiling with an innocence that made her heart ache. Another from his university graduation, skinny and hungry but radiant with hope. Small steps toward reconnecting with his own story. The apartment temperature gradually rose. The Chopin music Elena played was no longer turned off after she left, but kept playing. Sometimes she arrived and found different composers playing. Debussy, Satie, even smooth jazz occasionally. And Martín began eating real meals. Elena started bringing extra portions of the dinners she prepared for her children, leaving them in the refrigerator with simple notes. Heat at 180 degrees for 20 minutes. And yes, you have to eat it, not just look at it. E. One Thursday, Elena was cleaning the bathroom when she heard a strange sound from the office. Not the usual computer typing, but laughter. Martín was laughing during a video conference. Not the fake professional laugh she had heard before, but genuine laughter. When he came out of the office later, he looked lighter. Good news? Asked Elena. The merger might not be completely dead after all. We found a new CFO, someone who understands that sustainable success requires more than numbers on a spreadsheet, someone who reminded me that companies are made of people, not just assets. I'm glad for you. I wouldn't have gotten here without you, you know. When you had to see me in that panic attack, something changed. I realized I couldn't keep pretending I was okay, that I needed help, that I needed human connection. Elena felt the moment was right. Speaking of connection, our birthdays are just a week away. How do you feel about it? Martín shrugged, but she could see the melancholy in his eyes. Like every year. Another reminder that I built an empire, but forgot to build a life. What if this year was different? Different how? Elena took a deep breath. It was now or never. What if we celebrated together? Nothing big, just something small but meaningful. To remind ourselves that we matter, that we're here, that another year is something worth celebrating. Martine looked at her for a long time, processing the proposal. Why would you do that? Why would you want to spend your birthday with your employer? You're not my employer, Martine. Not in the ways that matter. You're my friend. And friends don't let other friends spend their birthdays alone pretending it's just another Tuesday. He smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes for the first time since she'd known him. I would love that, I really would. That night, Elena sat with her notebook again, but this time her planning was serious. Not just a small celebration. Something bigger, something meaningful, something that would remind Martine that there were people in his life who cared, even if he had been too lost in his work to notice them. But doing that would require resources she didn't have. It would require time she should be using on additional jobs. And, most risky, it would require contacting people from Martine's past, tracking them down, convincing them to come. It was crazy. It could go horribly wrong. Patricia from the agency would kill her if she found out. But as she looked at the notes she had taken over the past weeks, fragments of conversations, names mentioned, references to a past Martine had buried but not forgotten, Elena knew she had to try. Because sometimes the way to save someone is to remind them they were once saved, that they once mattered, that they once had people in their life who believed in them when they didn't even believe in themselves. And if there was a chance, however small, to give that back to Martine, it was worth the risk. Elena woke up on Friday with a determination that scared her with its intensity. She had made a decision during the night, in those dark hours when all crazy ideas seemed terribly reasonable. She was going to organize a real surprise party for Martine, not just a small celebration, but something that would bring together fragments of his lost humanity. The first thing she did was call her sister Teresa during her lunch break. Are you crazy? Teresa didn't bother to hide her disbelief. Elena, this guy pays you to clean his house, not to be his emotional savior. I'm not trying to save him. I just want to show him he's not as alone as he thinks. And risk your job in the process? Because you know Patricia isn't going to see this as a simple, kind gesture. She's going to see it as crossing professional boundaries. I know, but Teresa, you should have seen him on that floor. I saw him breaking. How can I just keep cleaning his apartment and pretend I don't care? Teresa sighed deeply, that older sister's sigh of someone who has watched Eleanor make impulsive and impossibly compassionate decisions all her life. Okay, what do you need from me? Information. I need to find people from Martine's past. I have names, but no contacts. Over the weekend, Elena became an amateur detective. Using the clues she had gathered during weeks of cleaning, she began to piece together a puzzle. The university professor, Dr. Antonio Ruiz, who had written the recommendation letter. Elena found his information on the Polytechnic University website, retired, but still listed as Professor Emeritus. The former co-worker, Jose Garcia, mentioned in an old article about the early days of Salazar Tech Solutions. Elena tracked him down through LinkedIn. The elderly neighbor, Mrs. Flores, whose name appeared on an old note Elena found in a desk drawer. More difficult to locate, but after calling several apartment buildings in the neighborhood where Martine had mentioned living years ago, she found her. Monday morning, Elena made her first call. The phone rang 4 times before a cautious elderly voice answered. Hello? Mrs. Flores? My name is Elena Morales. Excuse me for bothering you, but I believe you knew a young man named Martin Salazar about 20 years ago. There was a long pause. Martincito. Of course I remember him. The skinny boy who lived in apartment 3B, always studying, always working. Did something happen to him? Is he okay? Elena's heart raced. The genuine concern in the old lady's voice confirmed her intuition. There had been real connections in Martine's life. He had just let them wither. He's living, but not necessarily living well, if you understand what I mean. Mrs. Flores, I know this is going to sound strange, but I'm organizing a surprise party for his birthday, June 15th, and I thought it would mean a lot to him to see people who were important in his life when he was building his path. What followed was a 40-minute conversation. Mrs. Flores told her about the young Martin, how he brought her groceries when she was sick, how he fixed things in her apartment without charging her, how he shared with her his dreams of creating a company that would help people. A Martin that Elena recognized in glimpses, but that the current Martin had buried under layers of success and isolation. "Of course I'll go," Mrs. Flores finally said, "and I'll make my tres leches cake, the one he loved when he was young and didn't have money to even eat properly." The next call was to Dr. Ruiz. More difficult. The professor was skeptical, worried this was some kind of trick or invasion of privacy. "Look, Mrs. Morales, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but Martin Salazar has become a very different man from the student I knew. I'm not sure my presence would be welcome." "Did you know," Elena decided to take a risk, "that Martin has anonymously paid scholarships for over 30 students during the past 10 years through a foundation that doesn't even bear his name? I discovered it by accident, reviewing documents he left open on his desk." Silence on the other end of the line, then, "No, I didn't know that." "The Martin you knew still exists. He's just buried under the weight of what he built. But he's still there, Professor, helping in silence, caring without recognition. He just forgot how to care for himself." "What day did you say the party was?" 3 conversations later, Elena had 4 confirmations. Mrs. Flores, Dr. Ruiz, Jose Garcia, who turned out to be now a successful software developer and was excited to hear about Martin, and surprisingly, Carlos Mendoza, the business mentor who had given the first major loan to Martin 15 years ago. But organizing the party required more than guests. It required a venue. Martin's apartment was perfect, but she needed access, food, decorations, and most importantly, keeping Martin busy that day until everything was ready. On Tuesday, when Elena arrived at the apartment, Martin was on the phone but raised his hand in greeting. When he finished the call, he looked thoughtful. "Everything okay?" asked Elena. "Yes and no. The merger is going forward, which is good. But it means next week will be absolute chaos of meetings and negotiations, including our birthday." Elena felt a moment of panic, but then saw the opportunity. "What if we celebrate in the evening then, after your meetings? I can come at 6, prepare something special." Martin smiled. "I'd love that, but you have to let me contribute. I'll order food from that Argentine restaurant you mentioned you wanted to try." "Deal." What Martin didn't know was that Elena was planning much more than a quiet dinner. That night, Elena sat with Miguel and Sofia in the kitchen. "I need your help," she said without preamble. "I'm going to organize a surprise party for someone who really needs it, but it's going to require you both to come with me and help prepare everything." "The rich guy?" Miguel raised an eyebrow. "Mom, are you sure about this?" "No, not at all. But I'm going to do it anyway." Sofia, always the romantic of the family, lit up. "It's like a movie. The sad, lonely man who regains his humanity through the kindness of strangers." "We're not strangers," Elena corrected. "We're friends. Unlikely friends, but friends." The next few days were a whirlwind of secret planning. Elena coordinated between her regular work, caring for her children, and organizing the party details. Teresa lent her money for decorations. Mrs. Flores not only confirmed her attendance, but insisted on preparing enough food to feed a small army. But then, 3 days before the birthday, everything fell apart. Elena was in the break room at Premium Clean Services when Patricia entered with an expression that promised trouble. "Elena, we need to talk. In my office, now." Elena's heart sank to her feet. She knew exactly what this was about. In the office, Patricia crossed her arms and closed the door. "I've received reports that you've been fraternizing with Mr. Salazar beyond your professional duties." "Reports from whom?" "That doesn't matter. What matters is, I clearly established that you maintain professional boundaries with clients. And now I hear you're organizing a party." "A party, Elena? For a client?" "It's his birthday and mine. It's just a kind gesture. It's not your job to be kind. Your job is to clean, and if you can't understand the difference, then maybe this isn't the right job for you." Elena felt anger bubbling in her chest, but she crushed it. She needed this job. She needed the health insurance, the stable salary, the ability to secure her children's future. "Patricia, please, It's nothing inappropriate. Just cancel the party, Elena, or consider this a formal warning. One more and you'll be fired, understood?" Elena nodded mechanically, but inside her mind was screaming. She couldn't cancel now. She had already invited people. She had already made promises. She had already seen the hopeful light in Martin's eyes when he talked about their shared birthday. That night, Elena sat in her small apartment, her head in her hands. Teresa was across from her, serious. "You have to cancel, Elena. You can't risk your livelihood for this." I know, but what?" "But this rich man you've barely known for a few weeks is worth more than your own children's stability." The words were like a slap, and they were true. Absolutely, undeniably true. Elena had responsibilities, obligations, a family that depended on her. But she also had an image burned into her mind. Martin on the kitchen floor, trembling, saying, "If I lose this, what's left of me?" A man on the verge of losing himself completely, and she had in her hands the possibility of showing him there was more, that there always had been more, that it was never just his success that defined him. "I'm going to do the party," Elena said quietly. "And if I lose my job, I'll find another. But I'm not going to look back in 5 years and wonder if I could have made a difference in someone's life and chose not to because of fear." Teresa looked at her with a mixture of frustration and pride. "You're impossible, you know that? Impossible and incredibly stubborn." "I inherited it from Mom. Mom was always in trouble for helping people when she shouldn't too. And everyone remembers her with love, while the sensible and practical people are forgotten before the dirt dries on their graves." There was nothing more to say. The decision was made. For better or worse, Elena Morales was going to organize the best damn birthday party Martin Salazar had had in years, even if it meant gambling everything she had. On June 14th, one day before the birthday, Elena received the call she had been dreading and expecting in equal parts. It was Patricia, and her voice was pure ice. "Elena, I've learned from very reliable sources that not only did you not cancel the party, but you've been actively contacting people related to Mr. Salazar. This goes beyond crossing professional boundaries. This is harassment." "It's not harassment. They're people he knew and lost contact with." "I don't care what excuses you give yourself. This ends now. You're fired effectively immediately. You don't even need to serve notice. We'll send your last check by mail. The keys to the Salazar apartment must be delivered to the office today before 5. Is that clear?" Elena felt the world tilt beneath her feet. "Patricia, please, I have 2 children. I need this job. You should have thought about that before deciding the rules didn't apply to you." "I'm sorry, Elena. This is your own decision." The line went dead. Elena sat on the edge of her bed, looking at the phone in her hand, as if it were an alien object. She had just lost her job, her only stable income, her children's health insurance, the security she had fought so hard to build after Ricardo left them. And tomorrow was the birthday, the party she had organized, the guests who were already traveling, the promises she had made. Teresa entered the room, having heard the conversation. "Oh my God, Elena, what did you do?" "What I had to do." "And now what? How are we going to pay rent, the kids' school, food?" "I don't know," Elena admitted, tears finally rolling down her cheeks. "I have no idea, but we'll figure it out. We always do." "Do we? This isn't like other times. This time you actively chose this. You put a rich stranger before your own family." "He's not a stranger, and I didn't put him before my family. I did it because I want my children to grow up seeing that sometimes you have to risk things to do the right thing, that sometimes compassion is worth more than security, that sometimes—" She stopped, sobbing. Teresa sighed and sat next to her, hugging her. "You're an idiot, my sister. An idiot with a big heart and impossibly stubborn." That afternoon, Eleanor faced a dilemma. She no longer had access to the apartment. The codes would have been changed by the agency. How was she going to prepare the party? The answer was obvious and terrifying. She had to tell Martin. When she arrived at the building, the security guard stopped her. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Morales. I have instructions that your access has been revoked. I need to speak with Mr. Salazar. It's urgent." The guard looked uncomfortable but called the penthouse. To Elena's relief, Martine answered and gave her permission to come up. When the elevator doors opened, Martine was waiting for her in the hallway with an expression of confusion and concern. What happened? The agency called me saying you were fired and that you had been inappropriate with me. I told them it was ridiculous, that you had been completely professional. What is this about? Elena took a deep breath. I was planning a surprise party for tomorrow, for our birthdays. I contacted people from your past, your old professor, your neighbor from years ago, people who cared about you and who you cared about. And Patricia found out and said I was crossing professional boundaries and she fired me. Martine looked at her fixedly, processing. Then, wait, you lost your job for organizing a party for me? A surprise party? Yes. Knowing you would lose your job. Not at first, but in the end, yes. I knew it was a risk. Why? Martine's voice broke. Why would you do that? Because I saw you on that kitchen floor. Because I heard how you talk about your life as if it were a prison. Because I know you well enough now to know there's an incredible man buried under all that success and loneliness, and I thought if I could remind you of that, if I could show you there are people who still care, then it was worth the risk. Martine closed his eyes, and when he opened them, they were bright with tears. You're the most foolish and incredibly brave person I've ever met. Probably both things are true. What do you need me to do? What? For the party. What do you need? Money, contacts, resources, whatever, you have it. Martine, you can't just solve this with money. I'm not solving with money. I'm being your partner in this. You said we wanted to do this together, so let's do it together. You planned, I execute. Team. Elena felt something loosen in her chest. She wasn't alone in this. She hadn't been alone, she realized. From the moment she decided to go ahead with this crazy plan, she had Martine on her side, even without him knowing it. I need access to the apartment tomorrow during the day. While you're in your meetings, I need you to arrive at exactly 6 o'clock, not before. And I need you to trust that what I'm doing is because I care about you, not as employer or client, as a friend. You have my complete trust. And Elena, about your job. I can't undo your firing, but I can make sure you don't suffer the consequences. Let me... No, Elena interrupted firmly. I don't want you to rescue me financially. I don't want to be your charity project. I want to do this as your friend, and friends don't accept checks when they make gestures of kindness. Martine nodded slowly, understanding. Then at least help me execute this party perfectly. I'll handle the logistics. You handle the heart. Deal? Deal. That night, Elena and Martine worked together, planning every detail. He made calls, got discreet catering, ordered last-minute decorations. She coordinated with the guests, reviewed the list of what each person present would mean. At midnight, when they finally finished planning, they sat in silence on the sofa, exhausted but with a strange sense of accomplishment. Tomorrow we have birthdays, Martine said softly. Both of us. 33 and 42. Not particularly significant round numbers. No, but maybe that's the point. We don't need special reasons to celebrate that we're here, that we survived another year, that we found unexpected connections with unexpected people. Did you call me an unexpected person? In the best possible way. Elena, you're the realest thing that's happened to me in years. You don't see me as the CEO of Salazar Tech Solutions or as a bank account number. You see me as Martine, the human, the broken one, and somehow you don't run. Why would I run? Broken humans are the only interesting ones. Perfect ones are boring. Martine laughed, that sound that was becoming more common, more natural. What's going to happen after tomorrow? He asked. With your job, your situation? I don't know, I'll find something. I always do. I'm good at surviving. But what if you don't just survive? What if you thrive? That cleaning products company you want to start. What if we make it real? Martine, we said you weren't going to rescue me. I'm not rescuing you. I'm offering you a business partnership. You have the product and the vision. I have capital and business experience. We could be partners, equals, building something together. Elena considered it. It wasn't charity. It was a real business offer, and more than that, it was a way for both of them to heal. Her building the dream she had postponed, him reconnecting with the purpose he had lost. I'll think about it. After tomorrow. First, let's celebrate that we're here, that we found each other, that despite everything, there's still beauty and goodness in the world. Deal." They parted around 1 in the morning. Elena took the elevator down toward her complicated and uncertain life. Martin stayed in his apartment that no longer felt so empty, and both, without knowing it, thought the same thing. Tomorrow would be June 15th, an ordinary day on the calendar. But for Elena Morales and Martin Salazar, it would be the day they discovered that the best parties aren't the biggest or most expensive, but the ones that remind us that no matter how alone we've been, there's always possibility for reconnection. There's always opportunity for small, everyday miracles. There's always space for radical kindness in a world that too often forgets its own heart. Elena woke at 5:30 a.m. on June 15th with butterflies in her stomach and an impossibly long mental list of things to do. Next to her, on the small nightstand, her phone showed several text messages. The first was from Martin, sent at 5 a.m. "Happy birthday, Elena. Thank you for existing in the world and for reminding me that I exist too. See you at 6 m." The second was from Mrs. Flores. "Dear girl, the cake is ready. Tres leches like in the old days. I'll arrive at 5:30 to help prepare. How exciting." The rest were confirmations from Jose Garcia, Dr. Ruiz and Carlos Mendoza. They would all come. Everything was falling into place. Elena got up quietly to avoid waking the children and went to the kitchen. Teresa was already there, making coffee. "Ready for your organized madness?" she asked without turning. "As ready as I can be. Thanks for staying with the kids this morning. I'll come back to pick them up at 4 so they can help with the final preparation." "Elena," Teresa turned, serious, "I know we disagree about all this, but I want you to know I'm proud of you. Scared for your financial future, yes, but proud." Elena hugged her sister, feeling the weight of everything she had risked. "If this goes wrong, then we'll face it together, like always." At 7 a.m., Elena was in front of the Torre Empresarial building, waiting for the security guard to let her up. Martin had arranged everything, leaving specific instructions. "Good morning, Mrs. Morales. Happy birthday," the guard greeted her with a smile. "Mr. Salazar left this for you." He handed her an envelope. Inside was a card with Martin's handwriting, Martin. Elena went up to the penthouse, carrying the first boxes of decorations that Teresa had helped get. Upon entering the apartment, she felt the difference immediately. It was no longer the cold mausoleum she had known 2 months ago. The air conditioning was at human temperature. There were photos on the walls. The Neruda book was on the coffee table, open to a marked page. She read the marked poem. Her heart tightened. Martin had been reading poetry again, reconnecting with parts of himself he had buried. During the following hours, Elena worked like never before. She hung soft lights around the panoramic windows. She set up tables with simple white tablecloths. She placed candles that weren't the expensive designer ones from the apartment, but the artisanal ones she made herself, with vanilla and cinnamon scent. At 11 o'clock, Miguel arrived. "Mom, this place is incredible," he whistled admiringly. "Now I understand why you like coming here." "It's not the place, sweetheart. It's the person who lives in it. A good person who forgot how to be good to himself." At 2, Sophia arrived with Teresa. Among the 4 of them, they finished transforming the space. It wasn't ostentatious or excessive. It was warm, human, welcoming. At 4:30, Mrs. Flores arrived with her tres leches cake. She was a small woman, 78 years old, with bright eyes and a permanent smile. "Oh, dear girl, how lovely everything turned out," she said, admiring the decorations. "Martincito is going to cry when he sees this. He was such a sensitive boy, you know, always helping, always dreaming of making the world a better place." "What happened?" asked Elena. "How did he become so isolated?" Mrs. Flores sighed, placing her cake on the kitchen counter. "Success, dear. Success happened to him. When he started making money, at first he was happy. He visited me, told me about his plans. But then more money came, and more responsibility, and more pressure. And one day he came to say goodbye because he was moving to this elegant building. He said he'd come back to visit. He never did. Not because he was bad, but because he got lost along the way." At 5 cows, José Garcia arrived. He was a 45-year-old man, successful but with a warmth Martín had lost. "I can't believe Martín has been secretly paying all those scholarships," he said, as Elena guided him to the apartment. "When we worked together, we lived on ramen and dreams. He always said if he ever had money, he'd help others the way he was helped. I guess he kept that promise, even if he forgot how to help himself." Dr. Ruiz arrived at 5:15, a distinguished gentleman of 68 with a perfectly trimmed white beard. "This apartment looks like something out of a magazine," he commented. "Everything is perfect, too perfect. Is this how he lives?" "It was like this," Elena corrected. "He's changing. Slowly, but he's changing." Carlos Mendoza, the business mentor who had given the first major loan to Martín, arrived last. He was a corpulent man of 55, with an imposing presence. "Mrs. Morales, your call was unexpected. It's been 5 years since I talked to Martín. I thought he'd forgotten me after he paid back the loan." "He didn't forget you. He just forgot how to maintain connections. There's a difference." At 5:45, everyone was in position. Elena had explained the plan. Hide when Martín entered, let him process the apartment transformation for a moment, then everyone come out together. Miguel and Sofia were excited, hidden behind the sofa. Teresa was in the kitchen with Mrs. Flores. The other 3 guests were in the study. Elena checked her phone. 5:50. Martín had sent a message. "Leaving the last meeting. I'm exhausted but strangely excited. 10 minutes. Her heart was beating so hard she was sure everyone in the apartment could hear it. At 5:58, they heard the elevator open, footsteps in the hallway, the key in the lock. The door opened, and Martín entered, loosening his tie, eyes down as he checked his phone. When he finally looked up and saw the transformed apartment, he stood completely still. The soft lights, the lit candles, Chopin's music playing softly, plates and glasses arranged, simple but beautiful decorations. His home, which had always seemed like a showroom, now looked alive. "Elena," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "What did you do?" That's when everyone came out of their hiding places. "Surprise!" they shouted, though not too loudly, respecting the intimacy of the moment. Martín looked at them one by one, his face going through a dozen emotions in seconds: shock, confusion, recognition, disbelief, and finally, a devastating joy mixed with pain. Mrs. Flores was the first to approach. "Hello, Martincito. How you've grown." And then Martín Salazar, CEO of Salazar Tech Solutions, the man who had built a 100 million empire, the solitary genius of technology, simply collapsed. Martín fell to his knees in the middle of his living room, hands covering his face, deep sobs shaking his entire body. These weren't elegant or contained tears. This was a man completely breaking, years of repressed emotion pouring out like water from a broken dam. Mrs. Flores knelt beside him, wrapping him in a maternal embrace he probably hadn't felt since his father's death. "Cry, dear boy. Cry all you need. You've carried too much for too long." The others looked at each other, uncomfortable witnessing such a raw moment, but Elena signaled them to stay. This was necessary. This was healing. After what seemed like an eternity but was probably only 5 minutes, Martín lifted his head. His face was soaked, his eyes red and swollen, but there was something different in them, something open, alive. "I can't believe you're all here," he said in a hoarse voice. "After all this time, after I abandoned you." "You didn't abandon us," said José Garcia, approaching. "You got lost. There's a difference, brother, and the lost can be found." Dr. Ruiz joined them, placing a hand on Martín's shoulder. "When you were my student, you wrote in your final essay that true success isn't measured in money, but in the lives you positively touch. It seems you forgot that, but you never stopped living it. The scholarships you paid, Martín. The students whose lives you changed. That's real legacy." "I didn't want recognition for that," Martín murmured. "I just wanted, I don't know, to atone, to feel like there was still something good in me." "There was always something good in you," Carlos Mendoza interjected with his deep voice. "The problem was you built a wall so high around your goodness that you forgot how to let others see it. including yourself. Martin slowly stood, helped by José. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, an action so vulnerable and human it contrasted completely with the polished image he normally projected. "Mrs. Flores, your cake." He looked toward the kitchen where the tres leches creation was. "Is it the same?" "The same, dear boy. The same recipe from when you were 22 and came to my apartment hungry and full of dreams in equal parts." "I used to dream so much," Martin said with a distant voice. "I dreamed of changing the world. I dreamed of a family. I dreamed of a life that mattered beyond quarterly earnings. When did I stop dreaming?" "I didn't stop dreaming," Elena spoke for the first time since the surprise approaching him. "You just started dreaming the wrong things, numbers instead of names, successes instead of connections. But real dreamers never die completely. They just need someone to remind them how to wake up." Martin looked at her, and in his eyes was something Elena hadn't seen before, pure, unfiltered hope. "You did this, all this, for me, for us, for our shared birthday, to remind each other that we're here, that we matter, that another year is worth celebrating even when that year was difficult. You lost your job for this." "Yes. And do you regret it?" Elena considered the question honestly. She thought about the pending bills, the uncertainty of the future, the fear she had felt when Patricia fired her. "No," she said finally, surprising herself with how true it was. "I don't regret it, because look at this. Look at your face right now. Look at these people who came because you once mattered to them, and you still matter. If I had to choose between the security of a job and this moment, I'd choose this moment every time." Miguel and Sofia came out timidly from behind the sofa. Martin saw them, and a new wave of emotion crossed his face. "Your children," he said. "They came. They wanted to meet the man who's helping their brother with his education," Elena explained. "And they wanted to help organize the party. Miguel, Sofia, come." The teenagers approached with the adorable mixture of confidence and shyness, typical of their age. "Mr. Salazar," Miguel began, "thank you for the prep program. I've learned more in 2 weeks than in the entire last year of regular school. And the mentor you assigned me, he's helping me see there's a future beyond what I can imagine now." Martin knelt to be at Miguel's eye level. "Your mother is helping me remember there's a present beyond work. I think we're even on the debt of gratitude." Sofia, always the most direct, said, "Mom says you're sad, but I don't think you're sad. I think you're lonely, and those are different things. Sadness doesn't have an easy cure, but loneliness does. You just need to let people in." Everyone stood in silence at the wisdom of a 13-year-old girl. "You're right," Martin said softly. "I've been lonely. I chose to be lonely because I thought it was safer, that if I didn't let anyone in, no one could disappoint me or be disappointed by me. But your mom proved I was wrong, and you just proved it too." Teresa came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on an apron. "I hate to interrupt this beautiful moment, but the food is getting cold and I spent good money on those artisanal empanadas, so everyone to the table before this older sister has to restore order." The tension broke with laughter. Eleanor introduced Teresa, who greeted everyone with the efficiency of someone used to organizing large groups. They sat around the table that had never been used for its real purpose, gathering people. Mrs. Flores and Teresa served food while everyone found their places. Martin was at the head, but Elena was strategically at his side, a silent anchor. The meal was simple but delicious: empanadas, salad, homemade bread, and the promised tres leches cake for dessert. But what made the evening special wasn't the food, but the conversations. Jose Garcia told stories of the company's early days, when they worked from a tiny apartment with a single shared computer. "Remember when we had to choose between paying for internet or eating that week?" He laughed. "We chose internet and lived on ramen for 10 days. But we launched the first version of the software. It was horrible, of course, but it was ours." "It was horrible," Martin agreed, smiling with nostalgia. "But it worked. It solved a real problem. That was the point, remember? Not getting rich, solving real problems for real people." "When did that change?" asked Dr. Ruiz gently. Martin was silent for a long moment, considering. "I think it was gradual. The first million felt like validation that we were on the right path. The 10th million felt like we could no longer fail, and somewhere between the 20th and 50th million, it stopped being about the problem we were solving and became only about the numbers. Numbers that meant nothing except more pressure to get bigger numbers. Carlos Mendoza nodded with understanding. It's the trap of exponential success. Each level reached only reveals the next level. And if you're not careful, you can spend your whole life climbing without ever stopping to ask yourself why you're climbing, or if you really want to reach the top. Exactly, Martine sighed. And when you finally stop and look back, you discover you left everything that mattered on the path. Friends, family, Clara. The name floated in the air like smoke. "Who is Clara?" asked Mrs. Flores softly. Martine looked at Elena, who nodded encouragingly. "She was my fiancée, the woman who was going to marry me when I was nobody, the woman who loved me for who I was, not for what I had. And I lost her because I chose a business merger over our future together. I said horrible things, I pushed her away, and she left and found someone who deserved her, someone better than me." "Not better," Elena corrected. "Just someone who was in a different place in their life. You weren't bad, Martine, you were lost. There's a huge difference." "I've thought about contacting her 1,000 times, Martine admitted. "To tell her I'm sorry, to explain. But what right do I have? She's happy now. Why would I drag my regret into her new life?" "Maybe not to ask for forgiveness for yourself," suggested Dr. Ruiz, "but to offer her the closure she might also need. Sometimes apologizing isn't about getting forgiveness. It's about acknowledging the harm caused and freeing both people from the weight of the unsaid." Martine absorbed these words, clearly processing. The conversation continued, flowing naturally from one topic to another. Laughter mixed with reflective moments. Mrs. Flores told embarrassing anecdotes of young Martine. Miguel and Sofia contributed surprisingly wise observations. Teresa kept the food flowing and glasses full. When they finally brought out the tres leches cake with lit candles, 33 on one side for Elena, 42 on the other for Martine, everyone sang "Happy Birthday," off-key, but with heart. "Make a wish," Mrs. Flores encouraged them. "Together." Elena and Martine looked at each other across the flickering candles. In that moment, there was a silent understanding between them, a recognition that this day, this night, this impossible gathering of people had changed something fundamental. They blew out the candles together, and as the smoke rose toward the high ceiling, Elena wondered if Martine had made the same wish she had, that this feeling of connection, of belonging, of being seen and valued, wouldn't end when the party ended. It was almost 10 at night when Jose Garcia, the first to arrive, announced he had to leave. "I have an early flight tomorrow," he explained as he put on his coat. "But Martine, brother, don't let another 5 years go by. Call me. Let's have coffee. Let's talk about something other than business. Let's talk about life." "I will," Martine promised, and this time Elena saw he meant it. "I promise you." They hugged, not the formal embrace of businessmen, but the real hug of friends who had lost and found each other again. Gradually, the other guests also began to say goodbye. Dr. Ruiz left his personal card. "For when you're ready for that conversation about Clara, or anything else, my door is open, Martine, as it was 20 years ago." Carlos Mendoza was more direct. "The merger you've been stressing about," he said as he headed to the door. "Have you considered that maybe you shouldn't do it? Sometimes bigger isn't better. Sometimes sustainable and human is more valuable than exponential and impersonal." Martine blinked, clearly not having considered that option. "But everyone expects me to grow, the investors, the market." "And what do you expect?" Carlos interrupted. "Because at the end of the day, you're the one who has to live with the consequences of your decisions. Think about it." Mrs. Flores was the last to leave, not counting Elena and her family who had offered to help clean. "Martincito," the elderly lady said, taking his face in her wrinkled hands. "You're a good boy, you always were. You just forgot how to believe that about yourself. Don't disappear again, okay? I'm old. I don't have as many years as to wait another 5. "I won't disappear," Martine promised, his voice thick with emotion. "In fact, can I visit you? Maybe Sunday? We could have tea and talk, like we used to do." Mrs. Flores's eyes filled with tears. "I would love that, dear boy. I would love that so much. After the door closed behind the last guest, the apartment fell into a silence that wasn't empty, but full of resonance. Miguel, Sofia, and Teresa were in the kitchen washing dishes, giving Elena and Martín a moment of privacy without explicitly asking for it. Martín let himself fall onto the sofa, looking simultaneously exhausted and more alive than Elena had ever seen him. "I have no words for this," he said finally, "for what you did, for what all of you did." Elena sat next to him, maintaining a respectful but present space. "You don't need perfect words. You just need to feel. Let this reach you." "It's overwhelming. In the best possible way, but overwhelming. For years I've been numb, and now it's like someone turned on all the lights at once, and I don't know how to process so much light. You don't have to process it all at once. Just take what you can today, the rest can wait." Martín turned to look at her directly. "You said you didn't regret losing your job. But Elena, that doesn't change the fact that you lost it. Because of me. And I can't be okay with that. Let me help you. Not as charity. As friends who take care of each other." Elena considered his words carefully. Her pride still screamed for her to say no, but there was something stronger than pride, the understanding that accepting help didn't make her weak, it made her human. "The offer you made before, about the business partnership for my cleaning products company, was it serious?" "Completely serious. More than serious. I think it's exactly what we both need." "Then I'll accept, but with conditions. I want to be a real partner, not a glorified employee. I want to have a voice in decisions. I want to build something that helps other women like me, single mothers who need flexibility and dignity in their work. And I want to do it in a way that honors the values you forgot but are still inside you." Martín extended his hand. "Deal. Partners. 50-50. "Wait," Elena stopped him before they could shake hands. 50-50 in profits, but I need a higher percentage in operational decisions about hiring and company culture. 60-40 in my favor there. You provide capital and strategic experience. I provide product vision and understanding of the target market. But when it comes to how we treat people, I have the final vote." Martín looked at her with growing respect. "You're not just compassionate. You're smart, strategic. Why have you been cleaning houses when you clearly have a mind for business?" "Because cleaning houses paid the bills when my ex-husband left us and I had no college degree or formal experience. Because sometimes survival requires we take the available jobs, not the jobs we deserve. But I never stopped dreaming of more. I just postponed the dream until the moment was right. And this is the right moment. This is the right moment." They shook hands, sealing not just a business agreement, but a deeper understanding. Two people who had found each other in moments of mutual need and had decided to build something better together. Teresa came out of the kitchen, followed by Miguel and Sofia. "All clean, time to go before these kids turn into pumpkins or grumpy teenagers, which is basically the same thing." "Thank you," said Martín, standing up. "All of you, not just for the party, but for giving me a glimpse of what life can be when you let the right people in." "We're not the right people," Teresa corrected with her usual frankness. "We're just people, but we're people who care, and sometimes that's enough." After Elena and her family left, Martín stayed alone in his apartment. But this time the solitude was different. It wasn't the crushing emptiness he had felt for years. It was more like peace, reflective quietude. He walked to the panoramic windows, looking at the city spreading below, all those lives living in parallel to his. He had felt separated from them for so long, isolated in his tower of success. But tonight, he felt part of something bigger. His phone vibrated. A message from Elena. "Happy birthday again, Martín. May your 42 be different from your 41. May they be more alive. E." Martín smiled, writing back, "They already are. Thanks to you. Happy 33, Elena. May they be as brave as you. M." Then he did something he hadn't done in years. He turned off his laptop without checking emails one last time. He left his phone on the nightstand. He lay down in his bed, really lay down, didn't just collapse, and allowed himself to feel everything that had happened. The surprise, the tears, the laughter, the conversations, the promises, the cake, the candles, the people who came because he once mattered to them and still mattered. For the first time in countless nights, Martín Salazar slept deeply, without anxiety medication, without waking every 2 hours with worries about mergers and acquisitions. He slept like a man who had been reminded of his own humanity and had decided to reclaim it. 2 weeks after the birthday party, Martín called an emergency meeting with his board of directors. Elena had seen that day marked on his calendar and had felt a pang of worry. Martín had been different since the birthday, more present, calmer, more human. But the corporate world doesn't change just because one person decides to prioritize their humanity. The meeting was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon. At 4, Martín arrived at the small cafe where he had agreed to meet Elena to discuss the initial plans for their new company. He looked free. Not happy exactly, but liberated. Like someone who had just put down a 50-kilo backpack they'd been carrying for years. "What happened?" asked Elena before he even sat down. Martín settled into the chair across from her, ordered a black coffee from the passing waiter, and then allowed himself a small but genuine smile. "I told them I'm not doing the merger." Elena felt her breath stop. "What?" "The merger that's been consuming me for months. The one that was supposedly going to double the company's value. The one that required me to sacrifice more of my life, my health, my sanity. I told them I'm not doing it." "Martín, that's..." "How did they react?" He laughed, but it wasn't bitter laughter. It was the laugh of someone who had made a terrifying decision and felt surprisingly good about it. As you can imagine, panic, confusion, accusations that I'm having a midlife crisis. My CFO, the new one, asked if I needed time off. My general counsel reminded me of my fiduciary obligations to shareholders. It was a disaster. But I stood firm. I explained that yes, growth is important, but sustainable growth. Growth that doesn't require me to sacrifice my mental health or put 100 employees to work 80-hour weeks. I proposed an alternative plan. Instead of merging with the big German corporation, grow organically. Slower, more deliberate, more human. And did they accept? Not everyone. My development director resigned on the spot. 2 board members expressed serious concern about my mental state, but the CFO, the new one I hired, said something interesting. He said he had worked at 3 startups that grew exponentially, and all eventually collapsed because they grew faster than they could sustain. And that maybe, just maybe, I was being the only adult in the room by prioritizing sustainability over spectacle. "And Carlos, your mentor? What did he say?" "Ah, Carlos. I called him before the meeting to ask for advice. You know what he said? You finally remembered why you started this. Turns out he's been waiting for me to make this decision for years. I was just too blinded by success metrics to listen to my own moral compass." Eleanor felt something loosen in her chest. Pride, perhaps. Or recognition that the things that had started with a simple birthday party were having ripples much larger than she had imagined. "I'm proud of you," she said simply. "Don't do that yet. Pride implies I made the right decision. I still don't know if it's right. Maybe I just sabotaged my own company. Maybe in 6 months I'll regret it. But what I do know is that for the first time in years, I can sleep without medication. I can look at myself in the mirror without feeling that weight in my chest. So right or wrong, it's authentic." That's all anyone can ask for. They spent the next 2 hours talking about their new company. Elena had been working on plans, researching suppliers, identifying target markets. Martín contributed his strategic experience, asking questions she hadn't considered, pointing out potential challenges but also opportunities. "What will we call it?" asked Martín at some point. "I've been thinking about that. Something that captures what we're doing. Not just cleaning products, but dignity, empowerment, a second chance for women who are exactly where I was 2 months ago." "What about roots?" suggested Martín. "Because you're building on your roots, on what your grandmother taught you, and because we want to help other women put down roots, to establish themselves, to grow from a place of stability." Elena let the name settle. Roots. Simple, meaningful, honest. "Roots," she repeated. I like it, not pretentious, not corporate, just real. Like you, Martine pointed out. Then Roots it is, Elena smiled. Now comes the hard part, turning an idea into reality. I've been thinking about that too. Martine pulled out his phone and opened his notes. For this to really work, for it not to be just another startup destined to fail, we need to build differently. We need to start with values and let strategy flow from those values, not the other way around. What values do you propose? Dignity first. Every person who works for Roots, from CEOs, you and me, to the first employee we hire, is treated with absolute dignity. Fair wages, human hours, real flexibility for mothers and fathers. Second, transparency. No tricks, no fine print. Both in how we treat employees and how we market products. If we say something is natural, it better really be natural. Third, community. We don't build a company to dominate a market. We build a community of people who support each other, employees who become entrepreneurs, customers who become ambassadors, an ecosystem, not a hierarchy. Elena listened, feeling that something profound was taking shape. Not just a business, but a manifestation of everything they had both learned in the past 2 months. Fourth, she added, sustainability. Not just environmental, though that's important, but sustainability in every sense. Sustainable growth rate, sustainable expectations, sustainable lives for the people involved. Perfect. Martine wrote it all down. So Roots, dignity, transparency, community, sustainability. If any decision we make violates any of these, we don't do it, no matter how much money it promises. Even if that means we never become millionaires. Martine looked at her with an intensity she recognized from their deepest conversations. Elena, I'm already a millionaire, and I can tell you that money didn't buy even 1 minute of real peace. What it bought was sophisticated distractions from my own emptiness. I'd rather build something small but meaningful than something massive but empty. Then we agree. Eleanor extended her hand. Roots, a business built on human values, slow and real growth, success measured in changed lives, not just bank account numbers. They shook hands, and in that grip was something more than a business agreement. It was a pact to help each other stay honest, to remember why they were doing this, to not get lost along the way as Martine had gotten lost before. That night, Eleanor arrived home with energy bubbling. Miguel was doing homework at the kitchen table, Sophia was practicing guitar in her room, and Teresa was preparing dinner. "Why that smile?" asked Teresa. "You look like when Mum got that special job she'd been waiting for." "Because I just took the first real step toward building something of my own, something of ours, Roots. The company is going to happen." Roots? Nice name. And is the millionaire partner really going to be a partner, or is he going to be a boss in disguise? Really a partner. We reviewed the terms, 50-50 in profits. I have final decision on hiring and culture. He provides capital and strategy. It's real, Teresa, really real. Teresa hugged her sister, and Elena felt tears of relief and gratitude. She had risked everything. She had lost her job. She had weeks of terrifying uncertainty, but now something was taking shape, something that could be extraordinary. "Mom would be proud," Teresa whispered. "Stubborn and crazy as always, but proud." Miguel looked up from his homework. "So, Mr. Salazar is really going to be your partner. Isn't that weird? 2 months ago you were cleaning his apartment. 2 months ago we were both lost in different ways," Eleanor corrected. "Now we've found each other, and we're going to build something that helps others find themselves too." "That's very deep, Mom," Sophia shouted from her room. "Very Sunday afternoon movie, but I like it. Sounds like he really cares." Elena smiled. Her children, her sister, her unlikely new partner, and a future that for the first time in years felt full of possibility instead of just survival. 3 months after the birthday party, on a September afternoon when summer was beginning to yield to autumn, Elena was in the small office space they had rented for Roots. It wasn't fancy, 100 square meter space in a modest building, with walls that needed paint and floors that had seen better days, but it was theirs. The first product samples had arrived that morning. Bath salts, artisanal soaps, multi-purpose cleaners, all with the Roots brand and the logo Sophia had designed. a simple but elegant tree with spreading roots, engraved on each label. Elena held a jar of lavender salts, the product that had started it all, and felt a wave of emotion so strong she had to sit down. "Are you okay?" Martine entered, carrying boxes of packaging material. "You look like you're going to cry or laugh or both." "Both," Elena admitted. "It's just that this is real, it's really happening. We have products, we have an office. We have our first 3 employees starting next week." Martine set down the boxes and sat next to her on the still unfurnished floor. "Scary, isn't it? When dreams stop being dreams and become responsibilities. Terrifying. What if we fail? What if the 3 women we hired leave stable jobs and then we can't pay them? What if—" "Elena," Martine interrupted gently, "remember what we said. Sustainability. We're not promising they'll become millionaires overnight. We told them the truth. This is a calculated risk, an opportunity to build something together, but without guarantees. And they still chose to come. That says something about what we're creating." Elena nodded, breathing deeply. "You're right. It's just imposter syndrome screaming loudly. Ah yes, my old friend imposter syndrome. You know that even with a company valued at 100 million, I still woke up thinking someone would discover I was a fraud, that I didn't deserve the success, that I was just the poor kid from Seville pretending to be a sophisticated entrepreneur. And now I know we're all a bit imposters. We're all improvising, trying to figure things out. The difference is some admit they don't have all the answers, and that honesty is what makes real growth possible." The door opened and Teresa entered, followed by a man Elena didn't know. "Elena, Martine, meet Rafael Ortega. He's the graphic designer I mentioned. He's willing to do all the brand design in exchange. We give him free products for his wife, who's obsessed with natural products. He gives us professional visual identity." Rafael was a man of about 35 with retro glasses and contagious enthusiasm. "I love your concept," he said, opening his digital portfolio. "A company built on dignity and community. That's rare, especially in the beauty and cleaning product space where everything is about unattainable glamour. You're saying, we're real. Our products are real. Our values are real. I can work with that." For the next hour, Rafael presented sketches for packaging, website designs, marketing materials. Everything was simple but elegant, accessible but not cheap, honest but not boring. "I want every piece of design to tell a story," he explained. "Not just buy this soap, but this soap was made by Maria, mother of 2, who's building a better future for her family while creating something beautiful for yours." "Exactly," Elena lit up. "We want people to know the women behind the products, to understand that when they buy Roots, they're investing in real lives, not just anonymous corporations." "Heart marketing," Martine nodded thoughtfully. "It's risky. Consumers can be cynical. They might think it's emotional exploitation. Or," Teresa countered, "they might respond to authenticity. Because in a world full of polished lies and Instagram filters, people are hungry for something real." That night, after Rafael left with a signed contract based on exchange and good faith, and Teresa returned home, Elena and Martine stayed in the empty office, organizing boxes and planning next steps. "How's everything else going?" asked Elena. "With your company, with the changes you implemented?" Martine stopped, considering. "Complicated. Some employees love the new pace, more human hours, less impossible pressure, but others, especially the younger and more ambitious ones, are frustrated. They feel like I'm taking away their chance to win big fast. I had 2 resignations last week." "Do you regret it?" "The resignations, yes, I don't want anyone to feel stuck. But the changes, no, because the employees who stayed, who really understand what we're building, are more committed than ever. Real innovation is happening because people have time and energy to think creatively instead of just putting out constant fires." "And Clara," Elena risked asking, "did you ever—" Martine took out his phone, opened his sent emails, and showed a message dated 2 weeks earlier. "Martine." "Did she respond?" "Yes," Martine showed the response, dated a week after his message. "Clara." Elena felt her throat tighten. "That's beautiful. Painful, but beautiful." "It's closure," Martine said simply. "Not complete forgiveness, Not reconciliation, but acknowledgement. Sometimes that's the best we can hope for from our mistakes. Acknowledge them, apologize genuinely, and let go. Do you miss her? Always, but not in a way that paralyzes me anymore. I miss her the way you miss a path not taken, with melancholy but also with acceptance that that path led someone else to where they needed to go. They continued working in companionable silence, organizing product samples, planning the official launch. Near midnight, when they finally closed the office, they stopped outside under September's starry sky. "Thank you," Martine said suddenly. "For what?" "For organizing that impossible birthday party. For risking your job. For not giving up on me when it would have been easier. For reminding me there was more to life than success metrics. For basically saving my life." Eleanor smiled in the darkness. "I didn't save your life. I helped you remember it was worth living. There's a difference." "An important difference," Martine agreed. "And now let me return the favor. Roots is going to work, Elena, not because we have the perfect plan or because the market is guaranteed, but because we're building it on something real. And real things have a way of persisting even when superficial things collapse." They parted that night with renewed determination. In 3 days they would officially open. The first 3 employees would arrive. The first orders would begin to be processed. The dream would become completely real. And though they both knew there would be challenges, failures, moments of doubt, they also knew they had built a foundation that could withstand storms, mutual honesty, shared values, and the understanding that true success is measured not in money, but in transformed lives, including their own. The day of Roots' official launch arrived with clear skies and a cool breeze that felt like a blessing. Eleanor had slept little, her mind spinning between excitement and terror. At 6 in the morning, she was already at the office, reviewing the checklist for the 10th time. Teresa arrived at 7 with coffee and her practical wisdom. "Breathe. Everything's going to be fine. And if it's not fine, we'll fix it. Like always." At 8, the 3 new employees arrived. Carmen, Laura, and Beatrice. All were single mothers. All had worked in cleaning or hospitality. All brought stories of struggle and resilience that resonated with Elena's. "Good morning," Elena greeted them, feeling simultaneously the weight of responsibility and the excitement of possibility. "Welcome to Roots. I'm not going to lie to you. This is new for all of us. I don't have all the answers. But what I do have is commitment to treat you with dignity, pay you fairly, and build something together where we can all grow." Carmen, a 40-year-old woman with 3 children and hands calloused from decades of hard work, spoke for the group. "Mrs. Elena, we all came here because something in your proposal sounded different. Not empty promises of being like family while paying us pennies, but honesty. This is hard, but we'll do it together. We're ready to work." The first hours were chaotic. Order system that failed, packaging that didn't arrive on time, an early customer who complained because the website didn't process their card correctly, small crises that felt monumental. But each time a problem arose, Eleanor reminded herself what Martin had taught her. Panic doesn't help. Breathe, assess, resolve. And surprisingly, Carmen, Laura, and Beatrice didn't crumble at challenges. They rolled up their sleeves and solved. "In my last job," said Beatrice while manually reprogramming an order, "the boss would have yelled for 20 minutes about this. Here, we just fix it. It's refreshing." By 2 in the afternoon, they had processed 15 orders. It wasn't Amazon. It wasn't even impressive by corporate standards, but they were 15 people who had chosen to trust a small new company, and that meant everything. Martine arrived around 3 with pizza for the team. "I heard it was an interesting morning," he said with a smile. "I thought lunch would help." While they ate, Martine shared some of his own stories from his company's early days. The first product launch disaster, the customer who asked for a refund because the software was too complicated, turned out they hadn't plugged in their computer, the sleepless nights questioning every decision. "The point," he concluded, "is that the first days are always chaos, but that chaos is where you learn, where you discover what works, what doesn't, and what you need to change. You're doing incredible." At 5, when they officially closed for the day, Elena gathered everyone. First day completed. 15 orders processed, 0 resignations, laughter. Tomorrow will be easier because we'll learn from today's mistakes, and the day after will be even easier. Little by little, we build. Questions? Laura raised her hand timidly. Is it true that you were fired from your last job for organizing a party for Mr. Martin? Eleanor blinked, surprised by the direct question. Yes, it's true. And would you do it again, knowing the consequences? Elena looked at Martin, who returned her gaze with an understanding smile. Yes, she said finally, because that decision, though risky and possibly foolish, brought me here, to this office, to this team, to this opportunity to build something meaningful. Sometimes what seems like a disastrous mistake is actually the universe pushing you toward where you need to be. Carmen nodded thoughtfully. My ex-husband always said I was foolish to dream of more than just surviving. He said women like us don't build businesses, we just work in them. Being here, being part of building something from the start, is like telling him he was wrong. It's powerful. Then we're doing it right, Elena smiled, because part of what Roots is about is proving that women like us, single mothers, workers, dreamers, can build something extraordinary when given the opportunity and the right support. That night, after everyone left, Elena and Martin stayed in the office, exhausted but satisfied. First successful day, Martin declared, raising an imaginary beer. To many more. To many more, Elena repeated, clinking her empty hand against his in a silly toast that made them laugh. Eleanor, there's something I want to ask you. Martin got serious. And feel free to say no, but I've been thinking about expanding beyond Roots, not growing for growth's sake, but creating a model, a fund or program that helps other women like you start their own businesses, capital, mentoring, support, basically doing for others what we did together. Elena looked at him, processing. Like a social incubator? Exactly, let's call it, I don't know, Roots Foundation, and you could lead it. Not now, obviously. First we need to establish the base company, but in a year, 2 years, when Roots is stable, you could be the person who helps the next Elena, and the next, build a legacy of opportunity. Martin, that would be incredible, but huge. How would we finance something like that? Part of Roots' profits, part of my own investments. And maybe if it really takes off, we can attract other investors who believe in conscious capitalism. People who understand that purpose and profits aren't mutually exclusive. Eleanor felt tears burning her eyes, not from sadness but from recognition of how far they had come in just 4 months. From being strangers, linked only by a cleaning service, to partners building not just a business, but potentially a movement. Let's do it, she said, but with one condition. What? That we never forget where we came from. That when Roots is successful and Roots Foundation is helping dozens of entrepreneurs, we remember this first chaotic day with cheap pizza and 15 orders. That we remember all great success starts with small, brave, and often clumsy steps. Deal, Martin extended his hand. Partners in every way, in business, in purpose, in reminding each other of our humanity when the world tries to turn us into corporate machines. They shook hands, sealing not just an agreement, but a deeper commitment to shared values and a future they would build together. Leaving the office that night, Elena looked at the simple sign above the door. Roots, natural products with purpose. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't flashy, but it was hers. Hers, Martin's, Carmen's, Laura's, Beatrice's, Teresa's, her children's, and eventually all the women who would find opportunity through what they were building. The September air was cool, promising the autumn to come, but Elena didn't feel fear at the changing seasons. She felt anticipation, because for the first time in her adult life, she wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. And better yet, she was helping others thrive too. Ready for tomorrow? Asked Martin as they walked to the parking lot. Ready as I can be. You? Same. But Elena, one thing I've learned, we're never completely ready. We just have to be brave enough to start anyway. Wise words from the man who used to not be able to sleep without anxiety medication. Martin laughed. I still take it sometimes. Miracles don't cure everything overnight, but now I know it's okay not to be completely okay. That progress isn't perfection but small daily improvements. They said goodbye with a hug, no longer strange or uncomfortable but natural, and each went to their own life. Elena to her modest apartment where Miguel and Sofia waited to hear about the first day. Martin to his penthouse that no longer felt like a mausoleum, but like home, and both with the understanding that they had found something rare and valuable, a friendship that had fundamentally changed them, a partnership that made them better, and a shared purpose that gave meaning to each day. 8 months after the day Martin Salazar opened the door to a 32-year-old cleaning woman named Elena Morales, life had changed in ways neither of them could have imagined. It was a quiet Saturday in May, and Elena was in the Roots office, now expanded to a larger space with capacity for 20 employees, reviewing quarterly numbers, not because it was a weekend obligation, but because she wanted to see with her own eyes what they had achieved. Roots had processed over 2,000 orders in the last quarter. They had 15 employees, all single mothers or women in difficult circumstances who had found in Roots not just a job, but a community. 3 of the original employees were being trained as team leaders, learning management skills that would eventually allow them to start their own businesses. Roots products had been featured in 2 major sustainable living blogs, not by paying for advertising, but because the products were genuinely good and the story behind them resonated with people hungry for authenticity in a market saturated with empty promises. They weren't millionaires, they weren't even particularly successful by traditional corporate standards, but they were sustainable, profitable, and most importantly, meaningful. The door opened and Martin entered with coffee and pastries from the local bakery. "I thought I'd find you here," he said with a smile, "reviewing numbers on your day off. Old habits. Plus, I wanted to see if we can afford to hire 2 more employees next month. We have a waiting list of 5 women. I already reviewed the projections." Martin set down the coffee and sat. "We can hire 3 if we adjust the marketing budget, but honestly, word of mouth is working better than any paid advertising anyway." Elena took the coffee gratefully. "How's everything with your company? Are the reforms holding?" "Better than expected. Employee morale is at all-time highs. Retention improved 40%. And though growth is slower than before, it's sustainable. No more sleepless nights, no more panic attacks, just hard but human work." "I'm glad for you." "I'm glad for us," Martin corrected, "because none of this would have happened without that impossible birthday party you organized when I was too lost to ask for help." Elena smiled, remembering. It felt like another life, though only 8 months had passed. The empty apartment, the lonely man, the risky decision, it had all led here. "Speaking of birthdays," said Martin, taking an envelope from his briefcase, "I have something for you, well, for us, technically." Elena opened the envelope. Inside were legal documents for Roots Foundation, fully established and funded. "Martin," she whispered, "you said in a year or 2. You didn't say—" "I got impatient," he smiled, "and I talked to some investors I know. 3 of them want to be part of this, not as charity but as investment in a model they believe can change how business is done. We have seed capital to help 5 women this year start their own businesses. Next year, 10, and so on." Elena felt tears rolling down her cheeks. "I can't believe this is real." "Better believe it. And there's more. I want the first beneficiary of the foundation to be Carmen. She's been developing an idea for a catering service that would employ mothers in her neighborhood. It's brilliant, Elena, and she deserves the opportunity." "Carmen is going to cry when she knows." "Good, let her cry. Tears of joy are the best tears." They sat in companionable silence, drinking coffee and eating pastries, 2 people whose lives had intertwined in the most unlikely way and had created something beautiful from that intersection. "You know what day it is today?" asked Martin suddenly. Elena checked her phone. "May 15th, why?" "Exactly 11 months since I hired you as my cleaning service. 11 months since you opened my door and started, without knowing it, to completely change my life." "Technically, the agency hired me. You just opened the door." "No, you opened the door to remembering how to be human, the door to connection, the door to purpose beyond quarterly earnings." Elena thought about everything that had happened in those 11 months, the birthday party, losing her job, the partnership with Martin, launching Roots. Each employee hired, each product sold, each life touched. "You know what I've learned?" she said slowly. "That the most important things in life are never planned. They're found, in moments of crisis, in small gestures, in unlikely connections between people who never should have crossed paths, but the universe conspires to unite." Deep philosophy for a Saturday morning. It's what you do to me. Make me philosophical. The door opened again, and Miguel, Sofia, and Teresa entered, followed by surprise Mrs. Flores, Dr. Ruiz, Jose Garcia, and the Roots employees with their families. "What?" Elena stood up, confused. "Surprise!" everyone shouted, though not too loudly, respecting the small space. "It's not our birthday until next month," Elena protested. "No," Martin smiled. "But it's the 11-month anniversary since we met, and I thought it was worth celebrating. Not because 11 months is special, but because what we built in those 11 months deserves recognition." Carmen stepped forward with a wrapped box. "From all of us, to thank you for creating Roots, for giving us not just jobs, but dignity, hope, future." Eleanor opened the box with trembling hands. Inside was a framed photograph, all the Roots employees standing in front of the office, smiling, with a sign that said, "Thank you for believing in us." Below, handwritten by each woman, was a personal note, and so it continued, each employee sharing how Roots had changed her life. Eleanor couldn't contain the tears. She hugged Carmen, then Laura, then each woman present, murmuring thanks that felt completely inadequate to express what she felt. Martin also had moist eyes. "This is real legacy," he said quietly. "Not the millions in bank accounts, not the business headlines. This, transformed lives, restored hope, built community." Mrs. Flores brought her inevitable tres leches cake. "Because no celebration is complete without cake," she declared, "and because you two deserve all the sweetness in the world for what you've done." They spent the next hours in impromptu celebration. Children running between inventory boxes, adults sharing stories, laughter filling a space that just months ago had been only a risky dream. At one point, Eleanor found herself standing next to Martin in the small back office, watching through the window as everyone celebrated. "Did you ever imagine this?" she asked. "When you opened your door to the unknown cleaning woman 11 months ago?" "No," Martin admitted. "I was too lost to imagine any future beyond the next meeting, the next quarter, the next self-inflicted crisis. But you saw something in me I'd forgotten existed. I just saw someone who needed to remember their own humanity, like I needed to remember my own worth. We saved each other, didn't we? I don't know about salvation," Elena considered, "but we helped each other remember, reconnect, believe again that kindness matters, that people matter, that building something meaningful is worth more than any superficial success." Miguel entered, now with the confidence of a 17-year-old who had found his way. "Mom, Sofia wants you to come. She says she has something to announce." They returned to the celebration where Sofia, 14 years old and always dramatic, was standing on a chair. "Attention, everyone," she declared. "I've been working on a secret project, and today, with permission from my mom and Mr. Martin, I want to share it." She pulled out her tablet and showed an animated logo, a youthful modern version of the Roots logo, but with the name Sprouts below. Sprouts, Sofia explained, would be a youth line of Roots. Personal care products for teenagers designed by teenagers, with part of the profits going to educational programs for at-risk youth. Because if Roots is about giving second chances to mothers, Sprouts would be about giving real first chances to their children. The silence in the room was absolute. Then Elena began to applaud, followed by everyone else. "When? How?" Elena was speechless. "I've been working on this for months," Sofia shrugged with false modesty. "Miguel helped me with market research. Teresa connected me with a chemist who can formulate natural products safe for teenagers. And I thought maybe when it's ready, Roots could consider my proposal." Martin laughed, a sound of pure delight. "The next generation is already improving our ideas. Elena, your daughter is brilliant." "I know," Elena smiled with maternal pride. "But Sofia, this would require capital, product development, permits." "I know," Sofia interrupted. I don't expect it to happen tomorrow, but maybe in a year, 2 years, when Roots is stable enough to expand. And meanwhile, I can keep developing the idea, learning, preparing, like you did, Mom." Helena looked at her daughter, no longer a child but a young woman with dreams and plans and the determination to make them reality, and felt something swell in her chest. Pride, yes, but also recognition that what she and Martine had started was putting down deeper roots than they had imagined. Not just a business, not just a foundation, but a movement, a different way of doing business, of treating people, of building community. And now, the next generation was seeing that and wanting to be part of it. The celebration continued into the afternoon. When everyone finally left, Elena and Martine were alone again, cleaning plastic cups and paper plates, ordinary tasks that felt sacred in their shared simplicity. 11 months, Elena said thoughtfully. 11 months since I entered your empty apartment with my cleaning toolbox. Best hiring decision I ever made, Martine joked. Though technically, it was the agency that assigned you. The universe assigned me, Elena corrected, because we both needed what the other had. You needed someone to remind you of your humanity. I needed someone to believe in my potential. And now look, Martine gestured to the space around them. Roots Foundation, possibly sprouts in the future, all because a cleaning woman decided to leave kind notes next to a coffee maker. And because an entrepreneur decided to open up when it would have been easier to stay closed. They looked at each other, these two unlikely friends and partners, and in their eyes was mutual understanding of everything they had survived and built together. Happy 11-month anniversary, Martine said finally, to the day my life changed without me knowing I needed change. Happy 11-month anniversary, Elena repeated, to the day I learned that endings can be beginnings if you're brave enough to see them that way. They left the office together as May's sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Ahead of them stretched a future full of possibilities, more employees to hire, more women to help through the foundation, more products to develop, more lives to touch. But also challenges, inevitable failures, moments of doubt. Because that's the nature of building something real. It requires consistency, even when it's difficult. But as they walked to the parking lot, their shadows lengthened by the setting sun, both knew they were ready. Not because they were perfect or because they had all the answers, but because they had learned the most important lesson. Elena and Martine had found each other in their respective darkness, and together, with the help of family, reconnected old friends, and new employees who became community, they had built light. Not blinding light that erases all shadows, but warm human light that makes the shadows more manageable, the light of shared purpose, of restored dignity, of renewed hope. And as the sun sank into the horizon, marking the end of another ordinary day that somehow felt extraordinary, both knew that no matter what challenges came tomorrow, they would face them together. Because some encounters change everything. Some friendships transform lives, and some seemingly small decisions, like organizing an impossible birthday party, or hiring a cleaning woman, or leaving kind notes next to coffee makers, turn out to be the moments that define not only who we are but who we can choose to become.